Hey, so today, this is number two, actually three of 101. I got a ways to go. I'll be putting out more of these. We're going to look at the email trigger, and the email trigger is actually probably my favorite. You'll see why in a moment. There's a lot you can do with an email trigger. So what we're going to do is we're going to take an email, we're going to react to it with an if statement. We're going to say if the email has news in it, and I'll explain that in a moment. We're going to do something with it. But if it doesn't, I can do something else later on with it. So if it has recipes in it, we will do something else. And I'll show you in a moment. So now, if it has news in it, we're going to send it to the basic LLM chain, not an AI agent one yet. And in here, we're going to ask it to do something with that email. And I'll go into details in a moment. And then we're going to crawl the web for some data and then come back to it and eventually send it to Slack. So it's a cool chain. And I do this with my book sales. I go to Slack, I go to Twitter, I go to LinkedIn. So, I mean, you can really do a lot with this. I go to Google Spreadsheets. That's a great one, actually. So, all right, let's dig in. Let's undo this one. So let me just select them all and delete. And then I'm going to go over here to my collection of items so I can actually just paste them over as we go. And let me put that somewhere I can get to it. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add the email one. So I'm going to paste it over here from this other area. So basically in my triggers, let's delete it so we can see it from the trigger. In the triggers, we're going to add a first step. And one of those triggers will be, hold on a moment, get my head out of the way. And we have manually on an app event, on a schedule, and on a webhook, on a form submission. We're going to do other, and we're going to do email. There's so many ways. Local files. I mean, you could easily build like your own local index system with search. So we'll come back to all of this later. In this one, we're going to do email trigger. So that's this one here. Okay. So this guy doesn't have any credentials. So it's a basic IMAP account, and you can actually connect to your Google Gmail. I'll cover that in another lesson because I like IMAP because I don't use Gmail for everything. I create cheap emails with like hover.com. And I'm going to add that one here because it's basic IMAP. Now, you can do this with Google as well because Google has IMAP and you go to make an app password. So let's go get our credentials. Now let's look at credentials for a moment. I'm going to go add these and I'm going to explain some things as I do it. First, rename it. This matters. You'll go crazy trying to find things. And I didn't even know that was renamable. So at first I was like, this is stupid. But it actually worked out really well, obviously. Then I'll paste in an email that now everybody can spam. And then I will paste in a password. Womp, womp, womp. And I think, let's see if this is the one. I meant to set it aside. And then it's mail.hover.com. And what's nice is if I click save, it's going to go look and it will tell me, and it couldn't do it. So that's fine. All right. So then we'll try that again and we'll save. All right. And we get this nice green. This is really helpful. Just these little details really pay off. So now we're in here, we have our credentials. So what we want to do is we want to mark them as red. So you could leave them as not marked as red. And I used to do that when I had other emails being checked by other workflows. But I realized if I have one workflow checking for multiple emails, I can kind of manage the box better. So I will mark them as red. And we could download attachments, but I haven't done much with that. But that looks like a fun one to really get into. So if we test our setup, you have to basically send it an email. So it's not the easiest thing to do. I'm going to do it right now. And this can be tedious, but let's send the first one and we're going to pin it because as we saw before, if we do this and we have a success, we can pin things and then not keep trying to hit this particular node. So I've sent. Okay, so we have it. Great. I never want to wait that time again. I'm going to pin it. Okay. So now we don't have to do that again. We can keep working through this. So we have our email. Now, what do we want to do with it? We want to make an if statement. So let's go grab that. And this actually will make a lot of sense in a moment, and it will show you how kind of cool this can be. So if the email comes in with the word news, now let's go look at something really quick. When we got this, I specifically sent to assistant plus news, right? So if you look at that, I added a plus after my email name. So you can do that with email. You can say plus news or plus anything. And for whatever reason, the space between your email, the plus, and the @ sign, email systems typically don't care. So that's how you can kind of sub-organize emails. So in this case, I'm going to look for this. So if the JSON, let me drag that over to, and it even shows you here in a preview. And I could do equals, honestly. I'm just going to do contains. It doesn't really matter. Then we want to do something. But then I can add other if statements throughout this process. And I will have to look up how to do it. But then if it's recipes, so I'll send myself news articles. I'll send myself recipes. And with those, I can then do separate things with them. I can also say, hey, does the subject contain something? So eventually you can see like, hey, you can really process many emails in this one workflow. So this one, we're going to say, does it have news? And we have a true branch, not a false, a true. So we have our if statement working. Now, what you saw in that demo I showed a moment ago was a no operations. It's pretty much, I don't know the value to it, but I guess I like it. It just seems to be kind of makes things cleaned up a bit. So now let's go add the LLM. Now with this guy, it comes out of the gate and it has a lot to it. I've talked about this before. Let's close that and just put this here for a moment. And let's not connect it to the op. And we want to go into it from our if statement. If true, we want to go into here. Get rid of this. We're not really chatting with it, so we don't really need that. Now, this guy, though, we want to say, we don't want to take it from the previous node because I don't even know where it would take it from. What we want to do is define it below, define the system prompt. So this prompt comes in and we give this to the LM. Now we can add more like the user prompt. I think we've seen this before. We can even add the system prompt there. But I've been doing it this way and it seems to work fine. And so we're saying the data coming in is the body of an email. There's a link in the body. Use that and we're going to post it to Slack. So ignore other things in the email. The prompt could be better. That's one of your things you always have to keep working on. I'm going to turn this to expression. And then we see, hey, it really finds it, right? So we can see, let's pop this into a new window. It's just really nice UI. Yeah, and there's all my contact info, which I guess is everywhere anyways. So we can see that it knows what the URL in the email is. So by passing that particular text plain body into it. So now the LLM is going to get that and do something with it. Now, I'm going to force some output. And this is actually really cool because even though ChatGPT is good at structured output, it's good. It's almost perfect, I guess. But sometimes we want to use other things like Grok and it might not be as good. So in this structured output, I'm going to add a pattern here. Oops. Oh yeah, I copied it over to say, hey, we want the URL to be like this. We want the output to be like that. And then in here, we're going to add Grok. Be interesting to see what that warning sign was. It's kind of new. So I have my Grok account already, and I'm just going to use this one. I'm not sure the best one to use. I'm just using that for now. It's fast and easy. And then what we want to do is, that's about it. We just want to now run it to see it work. So if I run this, we get some output. And let's see if I can get some JSON here. That is not much output. So let's do a test workflow. Let's save it for a moment and do a test workflow. Oops. strip down our, okay, so this is actually really cool. So we get this unstructured text. With a prompt, we turn it into structure. This is probably one of the biggest deals with this, is how we can now not just be writing all this code to parse the text, but we can do this to take that unstructured text and structure to a way we need to. Okay, so now we have that, and now I want to do something with that. I want to go get that article and get some information. So I'm going to go fire crawl it. Again, you can use any, there's so many options to crawl websites and scrape them. There's even Grok. I'll have to look it up. I'll try and link it in the docs after, Grok crawl, which is really fast, and I have that set up somewhere as well. I like fire crawl just for now, just to keep going with the video. I have my header set up for it already, which is just a bearer auth. Again, you just name it and you give it the key, the header key, which I thought was the name of the credentials, but it's the name that goes into the header and then the bearer in the token. So this is bearer space token. And so now we're ready to say, hey, go here, give us information about what? Well, Firecrawl, we're going to pass it some parameters. So this is just according to their API docs. And actually, I should make a custom node for this because it would be nice to have. But anyways, we're going to go past the JSON URL. So let's pop this open. And we see, and again, another nice feature of N8N is you see the history of all the steps. So you could grab the URL from anywhere. Now, we know the URL is here because we just pulled it out thanks to the work of the LLM. So if we drag that over, it's json.output.url, and we see it previewed here. Really nice. So now if we run that, Firecrawl should give us results, and we don't want to keep hitting Firecrawl. It's a waste of credits. So now we have that cached. So now let's go to our next one and see what we do with that. So we're going to, and I don't know why I didn't use this as structured, but it doesn't matter. We're going to use another basic LLM, and we're going to say, okay, let's go get the Grok. So I basically would have just clicked model, and it would have just given me the ones. And this guy is just going to say, okay, this is a news article I found interesting. The pipeline, it just kind of goes through. It's a prompt. It's nothing great. And they say format it, title, URL, TLDR. Now, I might do something here just because I noticed before it might look better. And then I might tell it not to do things like do not say, hello, this is the output, because it just does that. Some of them are better than others. And then the original content is what it's parsing down and turning into this TLDR. Okay. So when we see the preview, we're going to get some stuff from Firecrawl. Mostly this markdown is all I care about. We have a title, and then we have a URL. All right, so now if we run that, we're going to tell the LLM to do that, and it gives us output. And it gives us a TLDR. It will look better in a moment once we send it to Slack, but you get the gist of it. And I can pin that as well. And then Slack can be a pain to add, bottom line. Now I'm going to try and talk about how I did this. So I'll show basically when you go here to Slack, it's going to ask for credentials. And then it's going to have access tokens. So all these links really are good. Another thing to point out is N8N has a lot of docs, and most of them are really good. So when you walk through these steps with Slack, just follow the docs, add the app. It's not that hard. It's just tedious. What I'm going to show on the screen right now is the create an app screen that I went through, just like they said in the docs. In the next screen, I just choose the app name and I choose a workspace again, just like they're saying in the docs. And then finally, I just add some scopes. They say that in the docs as well. It's a little confusing, but it was not that bad. Then finally, when you're done, you get a access token. So definitely not easy, but if you follow the docs, you'll be fine. And you can always paste stuff in Claude, take images, screenshots, paste them, ask for help. But once you get that done, you're ready to go. Now, what I'm going to do here is pull this over. And so we see that it looked successful. That's great. Big help. And we can run this now. But first, I had to invite the LLM in. So I had to say add at. And so then it allowed the agent into the Slack channel. So this is a big deal because you could start doing a lot more with the Slack agents. I mean, I work for a lot of smaller businesses, and like myself, Slack is just nice to have. It's expensive, but you could build these agents to further automate, further do things to just push data around. For example, end of the week or starting of the week things to do, progress reports, simple automations. So we added the particular agent, and we're ready to go at that point. Now, if I was to just send a test, it will hit Slack just like that. Now the formatting, let's see. Here we go. Deploying speech to speech on Hugging Face. That came out earlier because we were just looking at this. But just now I sent it. But you can see, like, it didn't really do the formatting. And that's where, you can play around with your prompt. You can sometimes use something other than Grok. You could use that structured output and play around a little bit more there. If I was really concerned about the structure coming out, I would probably turn this on and play around there more. Or I would honestly go to Claude or OpenAI because you'll just seem to get better structure overall. But now that is it. Every time we get an email, and let me send one over. Let me see really quick. Because the one I wanted to test, I've already tested. So let's just do this one. So I add that particular email address as a contact in my list so I can more easily do it. And then, again, you don't want to make a habit of this, but you have to now turn it on and save it. It saved it for me. And you don't want to make a habit of this because it takes forever, but then you want to send the article. And I sent it a moment ago, so I might have mistimed this. I'll try it again really quick. Okay. And now, while this is waiting, we're going to do other if statements here eventually, and we can go to YouTube, which is interesting because I have a lot of links that are about YouTube, but this one won't deal with YouTube because Firecrawl gets blocked. But there are ways to pull in YouTube data that isn't like pushing the rules. It's actually using your token, if I remember right, because there's a YouTube integration here. So we can then pull in YouTube videos that we like and add those to our particular list. Now, the other thing, too, is while we wait, we can go to our executions, and this all should kick in. There we go. It checks, supposedly, once the email comes in, and then we got our results. Now, that was a lot of results, so I would probably have to do a little bit more work to limit that guy. Maybe reduce or do something more with Claude. Sorry, not with Claude, with Grok here. But we could go like, look, let's go look. So again, really good debugging, really good way to find out what went on. So if we go here, we see we just had email come in. And we go through here, and we came out to here. So somewhere, if we look at the JSON, we see, at the table. I mean, that is 2 rows. That's interesting, right? So what we can do here is something came in, right? So let's go look here. Table's a good one. 2 items came in. Because I sent it twice. So that was it. I sent it twice. It came in twice because I sent one before. So I think we would have been fine if I did not do that twice. But I did have to at one point add a limit So I added an extra one here that would limit this to just one at a time. But that's not with this. But okay, you basically saw though how to do this, how to see what's going on with executions, even how to dig in. Because again, it's just a really great way to debug. I mean, all the way through this execution, I can see what came in and what went on. So if I did have a problem, I can chase it down pretty easily, which is really nice, honestly. And then of course you can get back in the editor and do your thing. And you saw pin data, which is really nice too, because again, just speeds up all your workflows. So I think that's all that I want to cover. I have a lot more to go. And just remember, you can subscribe to videos at DailyAI.Studio. I'll put a link down below to know when these are coming out or to get a summary. And of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel because that just helps. All right. Many